Morning. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Good morning. Calling the roll for the Tuesday, October 11th Board of Control meeting. It is 11 a.m. We have Councilwoman Nan Baker, Councilman Dale Miller, James Boyle serving as an alternate for Pernell Jones,
Present.
Nicole English serving as an alternate for Mike Dever,
Here.
Mike Chambers serving as the alternate for Armin Budish,
Here.
Lisa Rocco serving as an alternate for the Fiscal Officer,
Here.
Paul Porter.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the minutes from October 3rd. I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Nicole English. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Any public comment?
No public comment.
All right, let's go to our first item.
Our first item is BC 2022-585, Department of Law submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in a grant award recommendation to Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Foundation in the amount not to exceed $50,000 for the administration and management of law school admission tests, scholarships to eligible post-secondary students in connection with Next Generation Law School Admission Test Scholarship Program, commencing upon contract signature of all parties for a period of 2 years, and recommending a grant agreement with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Jonathan McGrory with the Law Department. This is a follow-up from an item last week. We heard, reached out to the Bar Association for some questions that the board had, and to follow up, this scholarship program provides funding to students interested in taking the law school admissions test. It'll be for minority college students interested in pursuing law school admission with financial need and whose primary residence is in Cuyahoga County. Though it is not limited to these programs, students that are in these programs, they will most likely get students from the CMBA's Louis Stokes Scholars Program, the county's College Now program, and the Say Yes to Education program in Cleveland. Each scholarship will pay for a complete program. There's no partial scholarships. Each scholarship cost is $1,000, though the CMBA said it's costs about $1,500 for this program, plus $150 an hour for tutoring. They have received funding from private donors, lawyers, the Cleveland Cliffs Foundation, Friends of the Bar Association. They've received about $93,000 so far. So the $50,000 grant, if provided by the county, will be 34% of their funding. And 100% of the grant that they would receive from the county, if approved, would go to the scholarship fund. So there'd be no administrative costs.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Are there questions from the board? Councilwoman, please.
I just want to thank you for looking into that. That really answered probably all the questions we had. Just a couple extra maybe that weren't asked. What did you say the tuition costs? The scholarship covers $1,500 plus $150?
Yeah, so the CMBA is in partnership with Kaplan, and Kaplan put the program together. The program provides 32 hours of instruction, 5 hours of one-on-one tutoring, 120 plus hours of accessible supplemental training. So Kaplan would probably normally offer that for $1,500, and then $150 an hour for the one-on-one tutoring. So about $750 for that.
So our $1,000 per student contribution, is that in addition to the $1,500? So it's $2,500?
No, so that the CMBA negotiated that price down to $1,000 per student.
Got it. Okay. And that includes the tutoring and all?
Correct.
And what did you say the income level was?
I did not, they said students with financial need. I don't know what the threshold is there.
Okay. Well, thank you for those answers. It's good to know.
So, are we expecting to serve 50 students?
That's a good question. I don't know if they'll have 50 in the first year. We're providing 25 per year. Again,
The two-year program. Are we projecting 50 students over 2 years?
I don't know what their projections are. they don't have that many students in their Louis Stokes Scholars Program where they anticipate the majority of it. So I can only guess, so I won't answer that.
So what happens if, this is a 2-year deal, so what happens if the 2 years are up and we've only gotten like 20 students and only used 20,000 of the money, then what happens?
Well, my understanding that this fund that the CMBA is putting together is to last longer than 2 years, and they just want to probably, since this is the beginning of the fund, provide enough to last a number of years, not just exhausted in 2 years. That's what I imagine, but I can follow up with them as well on that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Boyle?
All right, so it's a 2-year program, correct?
Correct.
Do we have any, and I guess we're looking a little, I'm asking a question that's probably looking too far forward, but I mean, is there an expectation to this be an ongoing situation? And I guess the results may bear that out. Is that fair?
Yeah, if they get a ton of requests and they go through this fund in 2 years, I would not be surprised if they came back asking for more. But a lot of that, yeah, depends on how many students they get to use this program.
And so this is going, our partner, as it were, is the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association. Back when I used to practice, I mean, there's the Norman Minor Bar Association. I know that there's the Female Women or Bar Association, and I believe that there's a Hispanic Bar Association as well. Is there a desire moving forward to, if this does kind of go forward, to incorporate those entities into either the decision-making or the application process?
I could follow up with the CMBA, but yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
know
I don't,
that
and again, I don't want to speak for obviously the other voters on this matter, but I think it's a great idea, a great program. I know how difficult it is to study for the bar and how expensive it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a barrier to entry for lots of folks that otherwise would choose law as a career. Assuming that this takes off, and I do assume that it will, hopefully that'll be something that Rebecca and her group will want to kind of incorporate them into the.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any final questions? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Or Dale will second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Moving on to new items, BC 2022-593, Department of Public Works submitting an amendment to a contract with Michael Baker International Incorporated for general engineering services for the period May 19, 2021 through May 18, 2024, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2024, to change the scope of services effective upon contract signature of all parties, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $443,884.
Nicole English with Public Works. So the first issue is the amount is wrong. We need to correct the amount to $493,884. There was a typo on that second four. So when we approve, we'll approve as amended. But this contract, we have a general services contract with Michael Baker. They were selected by an RFQ process. One of the tasks that we gave them was the preliminary work on the Lakefront Plan East 9th to 55th, that section there. As they finished up the preliminary, we've received some different funding sources, one of which is NOACA is committed to $6 million to construction. We recently just found that out. So in order to get the project done in the time frame to meet the schedule with the funding, we need to continue the work with this designer so they can just move right into final design. So this is covering the cost to get us to the actual construction set of plans and for any services we'll need during construction, which is why we extended the time frame to coincide with when we would anticipate that construction starting and happening.
Okay, thank you, Ms. English. Questions from the board,
Yes.
please.
So, am I correct that this is for the main connector project that's been talked about for years and years?
Correct, right south of Burke, from 9th to 55th, yep.
And is there a general agreement on what the design is going to look like, or is that still under discussion?
No, we've preliminary we've coordinated and gotten approval from the Metro Parks, the City of Cleveland, who, you know, is in charge of the airport. So there is some pieces around the airport. Us and ODOT actually, because it impacts some of their limited access related to the shoreway. So we've been working with them the whole time, so we believe we have a agreed upon product to move forward with.
And what's the estimated total project cost and construction timetable?
There is a the smallest amount, we think around 8.5 to 9, we could get the project done if we had to. There's kind of an ultimate, what everybody would desire, around 11 million. So depending on if we get additional funding sources between now and when we're ready to sell, will depend on kind of what we do. You know, it would be adding lighting, enhancing the landscaping, you know, so there's some extra pieces we would do if we got additional funding. And then as far as the timeline, fiscal '24 is our understanding of when NOACA's money is going to become available, which is July 1st of '23. So we would be able to sell the construction plans next fall in '23, and then start construction probably early '24.
So I heard estimates for the pedestrian bridge as high as 25 million. How were we able to rethink this so that it's in the 9 to 11 million range?
So this is different than the pedestrian bridge. This is a connection on the marginal, north marginal, from East 9th to East 55th. So it's not necessarily that connection over the railroad tracks. This is just putting bike and pedestrian facilities along the north marginal. So this is connecting, it's really where the gap exists now that will then get you to Harrison Dillard bike path and get you all the way down University Circle.
So this project doesn't solve the problem of getting over the shoreway and
No, it still uses East 9th, yeah, as the connector. So this is more the east-west connection that right now, like oftentimes we hear, especially, I know the Hilton's told us this a lot, that their guests will say, how can I go run by the lake? And there's really nowhere in that section that you can go, and also bike in from University Circle. So this is gonna kind of fill that gap.
And what's the current status on the north-south connector?
I think the city is leading that charge right now with GCP, right? So they've been having lots of public meetings about, it's all kind of tied to that Haslam plan. So we're waiting to see what comes out of that. They are working on traffic right now. They've presented some of the traffic modeling, and they're just continuing to work on the economic development piece of it too.
By the Haslam plan, do you mean the Brown Stadium?
Correct,
Yes,
yep.
okay.
Are there additional, please?
Just curious, the original contract with Michael Baker International, did they quote, was this supposed to be included in that? Or is
No.
this additional services?
Additional service. So the original, these are general engineering contracts. So when we first select them, they don't know what tasks they are, right? So they're just for an amount, and then we task out work, you know, different tasks that come up. So the original contract was $450,000. And then as we scope different tasks, they give us fees. So one of the tasks that they did as part of the original was the preliminary design
Yeah.
of this project.
Yeah.
And then we'd like to just continue with the same firm to do the final design because the funding came in for the construction. So we need them done
Did we
quickly.
anticipate when we hired them to begin with that it was going to be about $1 million project?
Based on, if you assume 10% of engineering, 10% of construction is engineering, it's in line with the
Okay.
right number. When we gave them the preliminary engineering work, we had no idea if we'd actually get funded, so we just kind of started with them to see if we could get a project funding. That's kind of, you know, where we started. But yeah, as far as what the total is, we negotiated with them and we feel like it's in line.
And this should complete it? You don't
Yes, this is getting
anticipate-
us all the way to the end for the design. You'll see a construction contract come
Sure.
forward at a later date.
Okay, thank you.
Any final questions?
Nicole, you guys uploaded the revised amendment with the 493 rather than 443,
We did.
correct? Okay.
It should
good.
be back to you, it's out of our queue.
Okay, sounds good. I'll have the buyer check on that. Thank you.
Okay, so I will make the motion to approve as amended for $493,884. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Porter. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item's approved. Next item.
The next item is BC 2022-594, Department of Public Works recommending an award and enter into a contract with Zscape LLC in the amount not to exceed $19,065 for landscaping, snow removal, and salting services at the Cuyahoga County Animal Shelter, commencing upon contract signature for all parties for a period of 13 months.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Public Works. This is a contract approval with Zscape. It's for landscaping, snow removal services at the county kennel. It's a not-to-exceed dollar amounts. We bid this competitively. We had 2 bids, and we're going with the low bidder, which is Zscape.
Thank you, Tom. Questions from the board? Mr. Boyle, please.
We have our own set, I mean, I know is it because they're not proximate to any of the county buildings?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, logistics. When our sanitary crew was out in Valley View, they're right down the street. They took care of a lot of the services, but they're out in Harvard, so logistically, it doesn't make sense.
Fair enough.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, I will make the motion to approve this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Boyle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is
Thank you.
approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-595, Department of Information Technology, on behalf of the Sheriff's Department, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in award recommendation to M&J Technologies Direct Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $61,474 for a state contract purchase of 69 monitors and workstations, and recommending a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Janelle Green, Department of IT. This is a request, again, on behalf of the Sheriff's Department to provide them with additional equipment in order to process inmates as they come in.
Okay,
And this
Janelle.
goes, this goes in tandem with the request that is in, on the consent agenda for the presentation cards.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board? Yes.
So I understand, is this part of the intake, the time that they come to be processed?
I believe so, but I would need to verify that. You know, we get minimal information when we process things on behalf of departments.
Okay.
So let me verify that, and I can get back to you via email.
I just wonder for the amount of money that we have invested that this wasn't already included. Sounds like something that's fairly needed.
So again, let me verify that. I don't want to misspeak on that particular topic.
And that should have already been, this is what, October? Wasn't it supposed to be up and running by end of September?
Central booking,
Yes, central booking, thank you
yeah,
for the.
they are up and running. I don't know, in phase 2, phase 1 has definitely been up and running.
So central booking is staffed, running, and doing what they need to do.
My understanding
I
is
just
yes.
wonder why this is then asked, and why wouldn't that already be part of the central booking, right?
No, I definitely understand your concerns, and I will verify with the Sheriff's Department. And I know this is using some specific grant funds, so I will verify with them and respond via email.
Are you
Okay.
comfortable moving forward?
Well,
wanna make-
I mean, it's 61,000, it's needed, you're supporting it, you're saying they
Yeah,
can't do
yeah.
this without it.
We go by what the business unit requires. So they usually present us with some information in regards to why they need it and how we move forward. So we basically procure it on their behalf. So again, and get into the meat and potatoes as to why they need it, I will definitely have to circle back with the Sheriff's Department in order to better inform you as to why they need the equipment.
So if I'm reading this correctly, for the backup, it's for a quantity of 69 County Department of Information Technology Standard HP workstations and monitors,
Correct.
right? That's considerable, right?
Right, and so from the IT standpoint, we approve it based upon, okay, you want to use our standard equipment. So we have an IT standards list that we provide to procurement in order for things to move through the system quicker. So in terms of from an IT tech board perspective, we approve the equipment that is being purchased. So the specific purpose of it, though, is not necessarily what they review.
Mr. Porter, do you have?
If I could weigh in on it, this appears, based on the backup information, to be more of a standard refresh, like existing workstations that might be being refreshed. Because it says under project status and planning that workstations are purchased on an as-needed basis.
Right.
So it seems like rather than for the specific, new construction or the central booking, this might be generally just replacing old.
It very well could be,
items.
but I feel more comfortable with verifying it with the department
Sure.
before misspeaking.
Okay, so they're being proactive? Is that what you're saying?
That's what it reads like to me. I agree with Janelle. Good to confirm with the department, but based on similar transactions that other departments have done, this seems like just a general refresh, and using a state contract gets them the best possible pricing for the county's standard equipment.
Absolutely.
Right, if that's the case, then, as needed, it would be good to get an update as to whether or not if anything, just to see whether the central booking is up and running and whether this is something that is impacting its delay or enhancing.
As far as that's,
Yeah, I
as
don't
far
think
as,
so.
I don't think this is impacting.
You don't think it's-
the
has
opening of
anything-
it. I think
Not a
that's all.
delay, no, because they're running. I don't think
Yeah.
they're waiting for computers. So I mean, if it's a refresh, maybe they'll swap out some in
Right.
that area, but yeah.
Right, and they do say as needed, so chances are it's money put aside for,
Right, and it's like, again, when dealing with this, and specifically with grant funds, I like to
Right,
be
and
able
it's
to
grant
speak
funds.
directly to that and answer your question directly instead of alluding to
Sure.
how it's being used.
I'm good with it, if we could
Okay.
just get confirmation later.
Absolutely.
Okay, Janelle, follow back up then. I will make a motion to, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Boyle.
Just a question and then a comment. I'm assuming, I know there's been issues in the past, but I'm assuming that these stations and monitors will be, some will be in jail 1 and some will be in jail 2. Do you know?
Not having the backup, I don't know. Again, I can tack that onto the response.
That's fine. And then the comment I have, and it's, Janelle, there's, when matters come through that are, obviously this is an IT-led purchase, but it's got very specific sheriff-related questions. And it may be a good practice on some of these very specific ones to have somebody from the sheriff here. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
I know.
Typically, somebody is here
I
from that,
know.
so.
I know, and that leaves you up there kind of like,
Like,
I don't know.
yeah,
And I-
so-
And following up on Councilwoman Baker's comments, obviously, I mean, look, this is, I think there's an agreement to move this forward, but for further informational purposes, that might be helpful.
Absolutely,
All right, thank you.
sure.
And if I may,
Please.
now that I'm reading a little more of the backup, it does say that implementing an efficient computer system for data handling is something that is needed. It's not, it says that what we are using now is communication. Retrieval has challenged the 700-plus employees as well as community department, most of which are already utilizing community technology. So this is supposed to improve the communications.
Right.
The current process is labor-intensive, inconsistent, and often a key factor in project delays. So it sounds like they're going to put this to use right away. It's not.
I'm
gonna
sure
be
they are.
something-
It's not going to sit around. But again, to your specific question about if it's central booking or some other portion of the jail, I want to be very specific and intentional about my response.
But I don't think this is going in reserves. It sounds like they're going to
Oh, no.
implement
I
it
think
right
they're
away.
using
Sure.
them. It's,
Usually in
yeah.
those,
Yeah, to
in those
refresh
areas.
older ones. I
Right,
think.
usually for equipment for other departments, it's definitely a direct usage, not a backstock like IT would do. This is definitely for their intent and usage.
I did get confirmation that they are not going to central booking
Oh, good.
Oh,
from the sheriff's department, so.
okay. Did it say that somewhere, or?
No,
Just
he
kinda
just
I think she
sent me a
just, I think she
message.
just messaged.
Yeah.
All right.
He's probably
well,
talking to
good.
Matt to confirm.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
that
So
we
that's
know that.
good. So in terms of the question about jail 1 and jail 2, I can get that response to you.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. I will make the motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item's approved. Next item, please.
The next item is BC 2022-596, Department of Information Technology, submitting an amendment to a contract with N4 Public Sector Incorporated for staff augmentation services for go-live support, system integration, and stabilization of workforce management and payroll for Enterprise Resource Planning System for the period May 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022, for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $89,900.
Janelle Green, Department of IT. This is an amendment to an existing agreement with Infor for time and materials, labor, for use with the WFM payroll systems. Now, we're out of the implementation phase, but this is for ongoing staff augmentation. It is no secret that it's been a challenge to staff the technical piece on the ERP. So this would provide support for our team in terms of the WFM and payroll. And in terms of amending this further, we anticipate this is the last amendment for this Infor agreement.
Okay, Janelle, questions from the board? Councilman Miller?
I have one, but I'll defer. You may
Sure.
go first.
All right, thanks. I guess here I would ask, you're saying this is the last, everything's been launched, there's training in place. Where is it that we are struggling, that we can't get in front of it?
So the way the ERP team is kind of structured, there's the functional areas that work with the business units to understand their need, and there's the technical piece to execute the changes into like the database and the modules.
Okay.
So where we're struggling is retaining talent in the technical piece with updating codes and stuff like that. So when we talk about, yes, the WFM and the payroll modules are up, it's still like some changes, some tweaks if we have some issues that we run into with using the applications that need to be addressed. And because we don't have that staff, a permanent staff on hand, we have leaned on Infor to provide us with a couple of consultants that will aid us in that area.
And if I may, so this is October, middle of October. We're only taking this to the end of the year for $90,000?
Yes, yes. The assistance that we do get is pretty expensive. So I think it's between $200 and $225 an hour. So with that, should we not get any in-house technical expertise, we have been reaching out to other companies in order to assist us moving forward at a cheaper rate. Is that what we're aiming for? But still having the quality of technical assistance that we do need in order to carry out our daily business.
And your comment about retaining talent, do you anticipate that we are in a training mode now, that we will be able to overcome this by the end of the year, so we're not hiring again next year?
Well, that was, again, what I stated before is that we didn't have a lot of technical assistance in this area. So again, the ERP is separated into functional and technical. So we don't really have the support on the technical aspect. So training our functional people, they're more about business requirements and making sure that it's working in the way that the business unit requires, whereas the technical people are doing the active coding change. And a lot of that is actual code training and being certified in those applications from Infor and understanding the coding language.
Right.
So unfortunately, that is not something we can necessarily teach the functional areas. We would need to have a technical person that can execute those changes. So we're actively recruiting and have been actively recruiting for assistance in that technical area that we have not had much success on thus far. So that's why we're also reaching out to other entities to help us kind of either recruit talent or to be able to provide us with consultants at, again, a cheaper rate than what Infor is providing.
So it sounds like this may not be the end.
It's the end, from what I was told, this is the end for the Infor piece, but we will have to come back and bring back a contract most likely with a different entity in order to provide the services.
Okay, good, this is
So
ongoing
it's not really the
expenses.
end, it might be the end of just this firm. is what
Of just Infor, right.
Yeah.
It'll be with another entity most likely.
Okay. Additional questions, Councilman?
Yes. So what would have to happen so that at the end of the year that we don't have to enter into another contract and can just handle this in-house? Would it require that we find some new staff, or is that basically what it would require?
Yes. If we would have to find new staff for us to hire permanently, yes.
One person or multiple?
I think from a technical piece, I may be misspeaking when I say this, probably 2, but I'm not 100%. I'll have to verify with the ERP team as far as how many FTE they would need in order to be able to effectively carry this out.
Well, happy hunting.
Thank you. Please.
So how many hours are we buying for $90,000?
I believe it's a couple of hundred. I did not bring that in front of me. Again, I believe it's a couple of 100 hours. And I know this also accounts for a teetering off at the end of the year, where the consultants will have, have holiday and things like that. So it accounts for, I believe it's 20 hours a week for each consultant to begin, and then it starts teetering off towards the end of the year.
Okay, hopefully this will be final.
Okay. Mr. Boyle.
If it's
Seems like it's a great
200
time to be a
hours, that's
consultant in Cuyahoga
$450
County.
an hour. That's expensive.
Agreed.
Go.
I mean, I don't even know what to say. I mean, we've gone through this and it's chaotic at best. A couple hundred hours, what's the rate that we're paying these folks?
Between 200 and 225 an hour.
225 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Has IT and the Infor team been in contact with either the HR department or PRC with amping up their hiring process? For example, and I don't want to speak for the council colleagues. I mean, there's been lots of comments about vamping up and changing the hiring process for the sheriffs and for the social workers to make sure that they are fully staffed. Have those conversations taken place?
From what I know of, yes. I mean, we've had IT recruiting videos, which I've participated in. I know that there's postings, different postings, and I know that this has been for our information systems analyst position, which is one of these roles, has been posted multiple times and trying to recruit. And I know that people have talked to their own contacts, reached out via LinkedIn. And I know that there's been things on Indeed. So there's been multiple avenues of trying to get this job filled. And also interviews have taken place, and there's people that have not been qualified and have not answered the direct question. So it's been multiple postings.
And so Infor is the vendor that kind of built this thing, right? I mean,
Right.
so just so that I'm clear, we're hiring the vendor's staff members to fix the vendor's product that we bought.
So I
They're
won't
not-
say it's fixing the product. It's what we have to do is when we implement our requirements into the system and basically ensuring the code can adhere to what our requirements are.
I get
So it's
that.
not saying that the system is broken, it's
No,
making
I
sure the
hear you,
system
and
is
that's-
working
that-
in the way that we need it to.
My comment or question was perhaps not fair, and you're right, Janelle. I mean, it's just, I think that there's a frustration that this is, we think we're at the end of the line and we're not. And look, $90,000 in the overall scheme of things is not the end of the world, but the fear I think that the county should have is that this is not the end of the line by any stretch of the imagination. I know what the labor market looks like. I mean, these struggles to hire people is not uniform or is not particular to IT, and I think it's going to be a challenge moving forward. And the lack of institutional knowledge in this county's workforce is causing chaotic results all over the line. And so to that extent, I think Councilman Miller's comment of good luck is obviously the right answer, and I hope that there is good luck in this process. So moving forward.
Yes, your comments have been noted.
Please.
Just to verify the numbers here, 90,000 is, should be giving us more than 200 hours if we're paying $250
I think
an
it's
hour.
450, 500 hours, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Right.
Right. What did you just say?
I think it was like 450 hours at $200. I was just
Okay,
roughly,
so your hours, we're actually getting
it
twice
might be
as
for
many.
2 people.
Right, it is for 2 people.
So maybe,
410 or so.
Okay, so more like, instead of 200 hours, more like 400 hours?
Yes, it's between 2 people.
Okay, well, that makes a difference.
I mean, I will say we have come a long way, going back to what you're saying. Our staff is becoming internally experts. I mean, we started from, zero, so it does take a little bit of time, but you're right. But our staff can't do the coding, but we have become experts in what we can do, so. All right, seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Nicole English. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item, please.
Thank you.
The next item is BC 2022-597, Court of Common Pleas Juvenile Court Division and Department of Health and Human Services Division of Children and Family Services, submitting an amendment to a contract with Case Western Reserve University on behalf of the Begun Center for Violence Prevention Mandel School of Applied Social Sciences for multi-systematic therapy training and consultation services for the period July 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2022, to extend the time period to June 30th, 2024, to change the terms effective upon contract signature of all parties, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $75,600.
Good morning, Tara Brown for Juvenile Court. This is amendment on our MST training and consultation contract with CASE. This is a late item due in part to the contract process. For perspective, the contract expired on 6/30. The budgets were approved late August, and the rest is due in part just to training and my own getting updated on how to get the contracts through the approval process. Additionally, during the review, it was brought up that this is our 6th or 7th amendment and that we should probably work on a new contract, which I did bring to the attention of court staff. However, I would like to note that MST Services is the worldwide licensing entity for this program, and they identify CASE as the provider for training in our region. So I just wanted to make a note of that.
Okay. Are there questions from the board? Please.
So I don't quite understand why in past amendments, as you said, there's been quite a few, that these are for 1 year, and then this one, you change that strategy to making the same amount of money, but for 2.
So the decision to make it a 2-year, I think it's just for continuation of services. However, we only get reclaimed dollars for 1 year at a time. So we just approved the 1 year, and then we have to actually wait until that budget is approved, and we can do an amendment to add those additional dollars.
So why is this for 2 if the prior years have always been for 1, and you're going to come back? Why not just make it for a year and come back on time to ask for the next one?
I will make note of that.
I don't know.
One thing I would note, we have done multi-year agreements with grant-funded items, and that, you know, when grants come in late, as Latera indicated, you know, we don't necessarily get informed of the grant right away. At least the contract would still be in effect in terms of the end date, and then the dollars could just be added via amendment that wouldn't be increasing the length of the contract. It would just be, you know, accepting the grant funds and applying them to the contract. That's a little bit of the rationale in cases like this.
Okay. It's just that in the past, in the backup, it shows 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21, all 1 year,
Correct.
75.6, and I'm just asking, yeah.
And again, those were all, I think, late, so this would be
late.
kind of a newer way of thinking about it to try and, because the reclaimed grant funding, that's not on the department. Some of that's on, you know, the state or federal government in terms of when they pass that down. Especially if they start a new agreement next year, they could potentially do a 2-year or 3-year, even 4-year agreement if CASE is the only one in the region that can do this. My recommendation would be agree to a long term and then just add the funds by amendment as soon as you get the grant dollars.
Okay. Okay, that's a good, I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Are there any additional questions? Seeing
Can I,
none?
wait,
Oh,
can I just
yeah,
make a
please.
comment? Thank you. Tara, thank you for the follow-up because I was the one that brought that up. So I appreciate you getting an answer for.
Okay, great. Thank you. Seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Boyle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Thank you.
Next item is BC 2022-598, County Prosecutor's Office submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to M&J Technologies Direct Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $11,539.05 for a state contract purchase of 39 workstations and related accessories for juvenile unit, and recommending a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Josh Brower, CCPO, Information Services. The item before you represents workstation upgrades, docks, keyboards, and 6 towers for the juvenile unit. Basic computer refreshes.
Thank you, Josh. Questions from the board? Mr. Boyle?
Didn't we do like a
We've
couple?
done a few of them.
How many more you got left?
I asked him that.
Your promise, just like Janelle said, that was the last one we're in for. You're promising this is the last one.
That's what I've
Sorry,
got
Janelle.
confirmation.
All right,
He means
fantastic.
He means
You're
the
out.
next item, not this one, but the next
All
one.
right.
Any additional questions?
I will move.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
The next item is BC 2022-599, County Prosecutor's Office submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to M&J Technologies Direct Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $35,751.75 for a state contract purchase of VMware vSphere software subscription and support services, and recommending a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Josh Brower, CCPO, Information Services. This item covers VMware license upgrades for VMware license upgrades, support, expanding high availability, disaster recovery, and management for our 2 data centers, one here in Cleveland and one at the SOC in Columbus.
Okay, Josh, thank you again. Questions from the board?
State of Ohio Computer Center, that's where we're throwing our disaster recovery environment, yes.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Boyle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
The next item is BC 2022-600, Department of Health and Human Services, Cuyahoga Job and Family Services, and Department of Workforce Development, submitting an amendment to a contract with the Centers for Families and Children for the Out-of-School Youth Program for a comprehensive case management and employment program, employment, education, and training services for young adults in connection with the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act for the period July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022, to extend the time period to June 30th, 2023. No additional funds are required.
Good morning, Marcos Cortez with Health and Human Services on behalf of Workforce Development. Again, this is a contract amendment with the Centers for the CCMEP program. Specifically, the centers will assist young adults between the ages of 18 and 24 with employment and education services. This is one of a series of contracts for this service. The other contracts were approved on the July 5th agenda as an item of note. Unfortunately, this one did not make the agenda, and so we have to bring it now for approval. There is a subsequent amendment to add funding being worked on for these contracts.
Thank you, Marcos. Questions from the board? Councilman?
Just a comment that my wife works for the centers, and so out of an abundance of caution, I'm going to recuse on this item.
Thank you, sir. Any additional questions, comments? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Councilwoman Baker, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And we have one recusal. Thank you. Next item.
The next item is BC 2022-601, Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Children and Family Services, submitting an RFP exemption which would result in an award recommendation to Harvard College on behalf of the Taubman Center for State and Local Government at the Harvard Kennedy School in the amount not to exceed $115,000 for technical assistance at the Government Performance Lab through the Child and Family Wellbeing Accelerator for the period July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, and recommending a contract with said RFP exemption.
Good morning again, Marcos Cortez with Health and Human Services on behalf of Children and Family Services. Again, this is a contract with the Harvard Kennedy School for a Harvard Fellow to assist our community collaboratives to improve their ability to meet the needs of families by deploying active contract management to address key challenges in service delivery. Active contract management is a set of strategies developed by the Government Performance Lab to apply high-frequency use of data and meetings to improve outcomes with our providers.
Okay, Marcos, thank you again. Questions from the board? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Boyle. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Moving on to the consent agenda items, which are BC 2022-602 through BC 2022-603.
I got some additional information from the sheriff's office related to those computers, just to let you know. They said they're actually putting new computers in the housing units that currently don't exist, so that the COs and other individuals that go to the actual housing units can now have access to computers for access to data information at a more timely, basis. So I think they don't have them currently, and so this was a grant that they applied for in order to get that. So just to clarify, they're not related to central booking. This
Okay.
is new in the housing units in the jail.
Well, that would coincide with the backup
Correct.
saying that they're using antiquated measures to.
Right. And I think also with these carts that they're buying, the presentation carts on this, on the PO, they're related to the computers will be on these carts that are can be moved around in the housing unit.
So that they intend on using all of the
Yes.
computers all at once, right?
Yeah, he said initially they asked for 90, because they were thinking they were gonna get tablets, but when they changed to a workstation type, they could only buy 69 with the amount of grant funding. So yes, they do intend to buy them right away
Good to
and then
know.
deploy them.
Good, thank you, appreciate
Uh-huh.
it.
Phone a friend, sorry.
Really had to
For
drill
that.
down for that.
And he apologized for not being, he said he was stuck in another meeting, someone from the sheriff's office, so.
Good, thanks.
Are there any questions on today's consent agenda items? Seeing none, then I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All in favor to approve today's consent agenda items as listed, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? They are approved. Moving on to other business.
We have one time-sensitive mission-critical item, BC 2022-604. Department of Public Works recommending an award to Brand Safe Way Services, LLC, in the amount not to exceed $5,819.74 for rental of an emergency structural scaffolding installation of the Fairmont Bridge in the village of Huntington Valley.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Public Works. This is a approval of a mission critical with Brand Safeway. It's a mission critical request that we had authorized by our director. It's for scaffolding that was to be installed underneath the Fairmont Boulevard Bridge in Hunting Valley. Upon inspection, our road and bridge crews found a deficiency that they had to address. With the scaffolding, that was the only way they were able to access where this deficiency is, so we had them install the scaffolding and start work to repair the bridge that they found where the mishap is.
All right, Tom, thank you. Questions from the board?
What's underneath the bridge? I'm trying to place it. Where is it? I mean, obviously Hunting Valley, but what is it over, what's under, is it the creek, river?
What river is it under? I'm not
You-
100%
that's
sure.
fine.
I'll let you know.
That's fine.
Yeah.
We've
I mean,
got
I
a-
guess they found something under the bridge, it's too high, they couldn't get to it, so they rented
Yeah,
some
I mean, we have equipment that we could access almost all pieces, parts of bridges, but this one they couldn't access, so we had the scaffolding. It had to get anchored into the concrete footing, so it's a little bit more detailed, so that's why we did the mission critical.
My thinner days, I used to run on the path under there. I think it's by the Metro Parks, I think.
The good old days. Okay.
Hunting Valley's
They've
not
come
too
and
big,
gone.
so it's somewhere.
May I ask, is
Please.
this bridge operating or is it closed?
It's currently operating. We do have some weight restrictions on it currently, which will be lifted as soon as they finish the repair.
What is it? What was that?
He's
Jim's not
still
allowed to run
talking
there.
about his weight.
I have to run underneath the bridge, not over it.
But we do have a weight restriction on the bridge right now, which we'll have lifted once it's repaired, so.
Is the emergency
I think he
structural
can handle you.
deficiency is that concerning that you?
I'm not
now
a
found?
bridge engineer, but I'm confident that our road and bridge engineers do their job well and know that it doesn't really impact, but they did put a weight restriction just as a safety precautionary.
Did they put the rate restriction after they realized?
Yes.
Right. So that was
And the
something-
dollar amount's a not to exceed, based on a 28-day rental. They did start working on repairs last week and hope to finish this week, so the final invoice should be less, but we made the full dollar amount as a not to exceed.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Items approved. Moving on to any other business?
No other business,
Any public comment?
no public comments.
I will make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Lisa Rocco. All in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you. All right.
Yeah, I'm curious to know what the city's gonna do. I'm sure
They told me to look for it, so I have to go read it.